Welcome and hi, I am 059666, Muhammad Hakim bin Shaharuddin, and today I'm going to present about my research proposal with the title of South Korea, Gastro Diplomacy Changing the Landscape of Food Diversity in Malaysia. Moving on to the abstract. This paper study about how the influence of gastro diplomacy from a state changed the landscape of food diversity towards another state. This paper explained how South Korea implemented their soft power in gastro diplomacy, which has changed the diversity of food in Malaysia. The Korean wave or K-wave managed to attract various age groups in Malaysia, especially the young generation, to fall in love with South Korea's culture, specifically in food. South Korean food diplomacy changes the taste identity of Malaysian by the method of food diplomacy that have been implemented by South Korea. Secondly, traditional food are becoming extinct due to the influx of food from outside, such as South Korea, which is the diverse food in Malaysia in traditional and modern ways. Finally, the diversity of food in Malaysia is growing while strengthening the good relationship between South Korea and Malaysia, which has an impact on traditional and existing food in Malaysia. This paper uses the qualitative method as in library research in obtaining information such as referring to journals related to gastro diplomacy in South Korea. From this paper, the readers can know about the uniqueness of South Korea in capturing the taste of Malaysians by using food as the element without using coercion. Then, the readers can learn about the diversity of food available in Malaysia after the introduction of food from South Korea. Therefore, in this paper, the problem that can be identified is Malaysia's openness in accepting the entry of foreign cultures, which can have negative effects if not well controlled, like the loss of national identity. The keyword for the research paper is gastro diplomacy, South Korea, culture, and Malaysia. Introduction. Collaborative projects like the construction of the Kuala Lumpur Twin Towers KLCC, technological exchanges, cultural interactions, and educational opportunities evidence the vital and beneficial relationship between South Korea and Malaysia since 1960. The Look East policy, SLEP, implemented by Prime Minister Tun Dr. Mahathir Mohamad, has successfully propelled Malaysia towards modernity. South Korea entertainment, including dramas, movies, song, and food, which have gained popularity among the Malaysian youth and has even made a significant impact on the global market. The influence of South Korea on the young generation in Malaysia has sparked a contagious interest in South Korea food, driven by the Korean wave or K-wave, as K-dramas and K-pop idols consuming South Korean food successfully captivate their attention, resulting in the expansion of chain restaurants like Myeongdong Tteokbokki and Cego across Malaysia, transforming the food distribution landscape to cater the Malaysian craving for the Korean cuisine. So for the background of this paper is to explain whether South Korea food diplomacy has changed the landscape of diversity in Malaysia. The good relationship between South Korea and Malaysia can be witnessed until now. Despite the benefit of good relations, there are some matters that need to be examined regarding the effect towards the citizens of Malaysia, especially the young generation. The identity of Malaysia seems to be getting thinner because of the influence of external elements. As we can see, most of the young people are too fanatical about Korean food. It is not the fault of Malaysian citizens because this matter indirectly promote good relationship between two countries. But this matter should not be taken lightly because it involves the identity of our country, which is the identity of Malaysia. To what extent will this be an issue for Malaysia? Is it just an assumption or reality? Therefore, the background of the paper focuses on the diplomacy between South Korea and Malaysia. This paper examines the extent of the impact of gastro diplomacy carried by South Korea towards Malaysia. Then, the reader will know the reality of what actually happened after reading this paper. So, for the research problem, there are three problems that I managed to identify, which is firstly, whether the methods of food diplomacy they implemented by South Korea is efficient. Second, whether Malaysians can accept the food from South Korea. And third, whether the existing foods such as traditional food are becoming extinct due to the influx of food from the outside. For research objective, firstly, to identify the method of food diplomacy implemented by South Korea. Second, to assess the perception and acceptance of South Korean food culture among Malaysians. And third, to identify the impact of South Korean food diplomacy on traditional and existing foods in Malaysia. The research question. Firstly, what are the steps taken by South Korea in realizing food diplomacy with Malaysia? Second, what are the perceptions of Malaysians towards South Korean food culture? And third, how does South Korean food diplomacy have an impact on traditional food in Malaysia? So for the scope, what about the scope of this research paper? First, it focuses on how gastro diplomacy and developments in changing the landscape of food diversity in Malaysia, limited to the context of South Korea gastro diplomacy and the distribution of food in Malaysia. Also, the diversity of food available after the entry of food from South Korea, and specific steps were taken by Malaysia towards gastro diplomacy. The limitation focus on food diversity in Malaysia. So for the research methodology, I use the library research as in qualitative method. I refer to the journal Korean Gastro Diplomacy, Strategy to Enhance Country Promotion Toward Muslim Countries, written by Ratih Hernandez. This journal emphasizes South Korea's strategy in diplomacy toward Muslim countries and the strategy used in spreading the country's influence with cultural and food values such as the Korean wave or K-wave. Second, this journal explains the aspect of emphasizing halal in expanding the wings of gastro diplomacy toward Muslim countries, where this method is significant for Malaysia as a country whose majority population is Muslim. And third, this journal explains the uniqueness of South Korea that stimulate the sense in traditional food that can attract people's taste bud to fall in love with South Korean food. Then, I refer to the journal South Korea Soft Power and Public Diplomacy, written by Rahma Azahra. This journal emphasizes about the cultural diplomacy used by South Korea is a catalyst for good relation between South Korea and the other countries. This journal also explains about the advantage of practicing soft diplomacy towards other countries. It also explains the uniqueness of South Korea that stimulate the sense in traditional food that can attract people's taste bud to fall in love with South Korean food. For the theory, I choose the theory of constructivism for this research paper. Constructivism is seen to be compatible with the title, which is South Korea Gastro Diplomacy Changing the Landscape of Food Diversity in Malaysia. According to Nicholas Arnold, he explained that a good relationship between a country and another country is influenced by ideas and not by the power of natural resources. Then, Alexander Wen is one of the scholars who debated the theory of constructivism in 1999 in international relations. So for the research contribution, what are the contributions of the research? Firstly, the public can learn about the impact of gastro diplomacy on the food scene in Malaysia. Second, the public will appreciate the food available in Malaysia more and at the same time reduce waste. Third, the public will be able to identify the value of art in the food served, such as taste, texture, smell and others. Fourth, the method used by South Korea, such as using the Korean wave or K-wave in spreading cultural values, has succeeded in attracting the interest of the young generation in Malaysia to love the South Korean food. The general public can also learn the theory of constructivism in gastro diplomacy and can be applied in daily life because these things are often related, and without realizing we use the theory of constructivism. And fourth, the writing focuses on providing awareness about the importance of appreciating food not in normal norms. Also will emphasize the gastro diplomacy carried out by the South Korea in changing the landscape of food distribution in Malaysia so that the influence of food from South Korea can be found everywhere and is still a trend now. I think that's all from me. Thank you for watching.